Hey, I'm Chashi and this is Spintires. Now, since this is a simulation game, there's less action to respond to, so I'm going to do something different for this time. I personally love off-roading, and this game is quite about off-roading. So I'm going to use this to explain some of the fundamentals of cars and all-wheel drives. Now this game I picked is basically you drive Russian trucks through some Russian forests, getting some Russian trees to a Russian lumber mill. And it involves a lot of Russian mud. Nothing against Russians or anything, but it's the setting. So one of the things I'm going to start about is a differential. Now a differential is something that you can find on many cars. Every car has them, and it's actually quite essential for a car to have it, because a differential basically allows the car to move the wheels of the axle at different speeds. Now if you were to have a solid axle in between the wheels, you would have some issues when you're going around the corner, because generally the outside wheel of the corner has more way to travel than the inside wheel. Now when this happens and you actually force the axles to stay spinning at the same rate, it would mean that either the tires or the axle get a lot of strain on them, which is not quite accepted or wanted for the durability of your vehicle. Now this differential is built up out of a set of gears, which has a little bit of a downside. This downside is that you actually get the most power towards the wheel with the less traction. Now in some cases this can be wanted, however if you are going off-roading you would actually prefer to have traction. Now this downside, however, can be negated, and some of the terrain vehicles, such as this one, have an option to lock the differentials. Now if you lock the differentials, this will mean that it works on the same principle as a solid axle, providing power to all wheels, and all wheels will get the same power distribution. And I've just switched to a new truck in order to get some of the logs we need. Now when the differential lock is giving all the wheels the same power, it means that the vehicle you are driving can use all the power of your engine effectively to put that into forward or backwards motion. Something, if you want to move someplace, that is very beneficial to your cause. Now I think I can give you a little example. If you can see, the rear tires are actually spinning quite a bit on one side, and this side is not doing that much. So I am going to switch to a lower gear, which I can turn off my differential. In the bottom left you can see what I turn off or turn on, and you can see that the engine that was the wheels that were previously doing nothing are now spinning. And all the wheels are getting the same amount of power and traction, and thus moving us forwards again. Welcome back, and as you've seen, it's night. I have loaded up the truck, which was quite a tedious task, and then I have made sure I started on my way in getting them towards our eventual objective. Now this is hardcore mode, so I don't get any waypoints or hints like that, and it's the best way to go is, I think, returning back to the garage and then driving through this route, while I try to explain you a little bit more about how the mechanics of these machines work. Now we left off talking about the differential, and I believe that's about everything I have told is the basics of the differential. So next up is the transfer case. A transfer case is a box between the I think it's called gearbox. I'm not entirely sure. English is not my native language. So no, sorry, the transmission. English is not my native language, so if I make some mistakes, please be gentle with me. A transfer case is basically a box that sits between the transmissions and all the axles of the vehicle, providing power towards the axles and distributing them evenly. Now the gear ratios of the transfer case can be different for the different modes. Every car has every car that uses a transfer case has a shifter, which is either mechanical or electronical, which modern vehicles have modern electric shifters. And the types of modes also differ for each machine in their setup. In this case it would be a transfer case which divides it from a 4x6 to a 6x6, meaning that all 6 wheels on this machine are powered by the engine. Now even though there are several setups, there are also similar... We'll try not to fall over, because we're really heavy now. Also because of the setup on different manufacturers and machines, there are different types of indications. They basically say 4x4, 6x6, 8x8, and those are actually resembling the amount of axles that are on the vehicle. Now this one is a 6x6, and if I would refer to it having only the rear 2 axles powered, I would refer to it as a 4x6, while a normal Jeep would be a 2x4. That's just the way that generally it is speaking about how it's powered. Now in the transfer case there I've spoken about modes, and one of the most common modes are 2 high, 4 high and 2 low. And on rare cases you also have a 4 low. Wait, no, I messed it up. 2 low. Rephrase, sorry. A 2 high, a 4 high and a 4 low. These modes are the most common ones found on transfer cases. In rare occurrences you also have a 2 low, but it's not often used. Now these modes represent the gearing used in the particular setup. If you speak of a 2 high, that is the average rear wheel drive mode, meaning that only the rear wheels of the car are powered. When you power only the rear wheels, it is in a high gearing by default, which makes the ratios more defined towards... Let's stop here for a second. I think we can refuel. No. I thought we could refuel her, but my bad. As I was saying, the ratios used are more geared towards maintaining speed, keeping speed. So an example of this would be highway travel, and I put it in the wrong gear. Examples of this would be highway travel or normal everyday commuting. Now in this 2 high mode, basically it acts like a normal car, like a non-terrain car. Now if you would switch it to, I can see what I... Yeah. If you would switch it, for instance, towards a 4 high, this would mean that instead of the rear axle, it also powers the forward axle. This gives you improved traction and is actually something you can use during the winter days for snowy or icy situations. But you can also think of a situation where you are going with a heavily loaded car over a mountain. So extra power would be required to actually get to the top. And every bit of power that you can pull from the car would be beneficial. Oh, please don't fall, please don't fall, please don't fall. Please don't fall, please don't fall, please don't. Ah, it's a tough little truck. He'll make it, he'll make it, you'll see. Continuing along, after this little tense moment, the 4 high mode is ideal for the mountain ranges. Now, once you get towards the 2 low fragments of your gearbox, you would actually mean that the... Did I say 2 low? I meant 4 low. When you get to the 4 low fragment of your transfer case, it basically means that every bit of power you can take from the engine will be put towards power towards your wheels, meaning that they sacrifice speed for power. Now, if you do this, the transfer case will shift into a mode of 4x4 in which the engine can use the torque or the peak of the revolution per minute torque to deliver more power towards the wheels, making them spin slower but with more strength instead of faster. This is a mode that is in no way beneficial for higher speeds, and even if you try to get higher speeds out of it, it might be harmful to your vehicle. Now, aside from this 4 low mode, which is also great for terrains like this, in the mud or water or sand or any situation where the most traction you can get is on a slow pace is beneficial to you, you could also try to go for the 2 low if your vehicle has it. This means that instead of driving all 4 of your wheels with the same amount of power, it will drive only the rear 2 wheels with the increased strength. Now, this increased strength can be beneficial if you are on short or slow trips where you actually could use the extra power. Now, this is a rare mode and it's not as often seen on machines, but it sometimes does happen. And some people actually, especially with a electronic transfer case, they have modified their vehicle so they can make use of this low power mode in situation they desire. And let's see if we can get through this water, shall we? It's going to be exciting. Yes, yes, we'll... Yeah. Almost. I know you can do it. Yeah. Oh. Keep it straight, and we're through. Now, in addition to these 4 low modes and every different combination of them, and we have to follow this path. The people that modify their electric... Oh, that modified their electric transfer case usually block the transfer case from engaging the front axle. So in a manual mode or a manual lever or whatever, they hinder the vacuum in which it's usually shifting. They hinder the vacuum from engaging, and thus making the rear axle go into low gearing. And low gearing is a term for this actual low mode. Did I go right? Yeah, I did. And of course for the high modes they generally call it high gearing. And this also resembles the ratios used inside the transfer box. And fuel seems to be getting somewhat low. So now that we're on pavement, let's shift modes, turn off all-wheel drive since we don't actually quite need it anymore, and we'll be on our way. Just gentle. Also, something that you might have noticed if you were paying close attention, the wheels actually seem to be somewhat soft. This is a thing that they often do in off-roading, which they call airing down. The airing down principle is to create more traction on the wheels that you have. Basically, the more air there's in the car, in the car tires, the easier it is to lose traction in slippy conditions which involve mud or sand. Now the mud or sand conditions generally require tires to be aired down, and they would go to low air pressure, but I have to think for a second now because there are different types of measurement units. Now there is PSI, pressure per square inch, and where I live we use bar, and that's a metric measurement into the air pressure, and we work with bar. If you air them down to use a low pressure, and I see the cloaking device right there, so I'm not trying to get it. If you use low air pressure in your tires, it means they will wrap and dig more strong into the sand. And I was using the wrong mode, so I'm digging myself in. Where I'm going? But airing down is generally a technique to get more traction out of the tires you have, and you don't specifically need to have those big chunky tires like these, because it also works on tires that you can use on everyday road. And even in tires there are several classifications on how they perform. You have, for instance, the all-terrain tires, which are suited with a healthy mix of street and off-road use. You have the mud tires, which generally tend to favor terrain. And this is not going as I had planned. And you also have specific rally tires. The specific rally tires are, however, more based on speed, and these are more based on, if you will, technique. The traction you get from these tires is a different type of traction you get from tires that are for instance rallies. And even in those there's a wide market, and if you research you can find thousands of different types of tires and several manufacturers, each with their strong and their weak points. And we have removed clothing, so now we can see closer. And we can see a garage, a couple of different types of trucks. And we can see this objective, which looks easier to get to. We might puddle through here. But even with the best tires you can still get stuck, as you have seen. So it also basically boils down to perspective or preference. Your vehicle and whichever type of driving you like to do. But I've been rambling for quite a while, so that's all for now. If I made you smile, don't be afraid to like, comment or subscribe, and I'll have more madness the next time.